we go. All right. So we have quorum, at least for our main presenter guests. So I'm going to get started. As a note to everybody, this meeting is being recorded. There are sections of it kind of like we'll cut out from here, everybody kind of chatting and saying hello, but that there are ideally questions that may be asked, information about the program that we'd like to post on our website. So just as a note to everyone, if you don't want to be recorded or have questions that you want to ask me, you can either use direct message or I'll put I guess everyone should have my email, but I'll put it in the chat at some point, just in case. But you can email me directly with any questions that you don't want to ask here. Um, so I'd like to get started. One, really, actually, just to throw this actually over to Paul. So Paul, I'm going to pull up a slide here that's just going to show all of the guests, but I'd like you to start with introducing yourself, um, and then kind of an overview of what's the direction and the vision for national security at UCSD. And then once you've finished, we'll have the rest of our speakers introduce themselves.
Cool. Okay, thanks. I'm only going to take a minute or two, but thanks for inviting me to make a few comments. Um, so national security is incredibly important to UC San Diego right now, for a lot of different reasons. One, we are in a very uncertain time, and federal support for research and everything else is uncertain at best at the moment. And honestly, national security and the Department of Defense offers an incredible opportunity to get support for the work that you guys are all doing. And what people don't necessarily always understand is that the support that the DoD and Greater National Security Enterprise actually offers is incredibly broad. There's almost no technology being developed on the campus that doesn't have some use in some way or another in the National Security Forum as well. So it's something that people should really be considering in terms of getting their work supported. And to that end, we are actually going to be consolidating all of our national security innovation um, supports and resources. And so over the next few months, in order to better serve those people who are interested in actually exploring this as an avenue for support for their work. And Shane and Rachel and a whole bunch of people here are going to be helping to put all that together. So um, I'm glad that you guys are interested. Go out and tell your friends, that this really is an opportunity. People don't initially recognize this. They see national security and they say, well, I don't work in national security. But actually, if you're working in cancer or you're working in drones or you're working in climate or you're working in a whole bunch of things, they actually have interests within the national security complex. So, for those of you who haven't been to AIM before, Shane does a magnificent job of running this thing. This is not just money. It certainly is funding for your projects to meet milestones, which get technologies further down the development pathway. So it is very much milestone driven. But I would very much look at this as support in terms of mentorship, contacts, and all of the people you're going to meet as you go through this process are equally as important, if not more important in the long run, frankly, than the funding that you may be able to get out of this. Because we will be bringing end users and operators and people from installations in the military and industry and investors to the table to be able to chat to you as you go through this process. So there are many upsides to this. So congratulations on being interested. Please do go out and tell all your friends and get them interested too. And of course, you can reach out to me anytime, and I'm going to offer, of course, Shane and Rachel and everybody else who are extremely helpful. So with that, I'm not going to hold up your meeting any longer, Shane, and I'm just going to hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Most appreciated. So I'm gonna throw it over to Rachel. Could you introduce yourself, a bit of your background and kind of what your role in the AIM kind of program cycle will be, and then over to Victoria and Anthony before I talk about the program.
Yes. Hi, Ray. Thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Rachel Costello, And I'm helping the OIC lead the Defense Technology and Innovation Initiatives as part of Forge. And also, I teach Innovation for National Security course, which teaches all 43,000 students on campus exposure to national security problems and users as part of AIP program. Over to you, Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Kahipe. I'm Associate Director at the Office of Innovation and Commercialization, leading the team for physical sciences and engineering innovations. And as most of you know, we are the ones who receive, evaluate your disclosures, do the patent strategy and licensing. And for this program, the applications are sent to us, and we do some kind of diligence on them. We have a number of questions to answer. And on to you, Anthony.
Hello. So I'm Victoria's counterpart on the life sciences. And as everybody mentioned, we'll review the application, but also it's a very important point that, even if you were in life sciences, if you're doing research in with AI on improving drug development, that could potentially be useful here. So, any application that would, in life science and obviously in physical science, that would improve things, potentially for drug development, for diagnostic, for a drug discovery. We would consider it. So don't think that its drug development has nothing to do here. It would actually apply here. Nice to meet you.
Right. And I I am Shane Moise. I am the program manager for accelerating innovation to market. This is our eighth year and first year, as Paul noted, with the foray into national security and dual use. It doesn't mean, however, that it's the first time we've ever seen dual use technologies. We've seen heaps of them, and are looking to really foster and build an ecosystem intentionally around developing and spinning out those technologies. Um, so, to date, I think we've funded around 40 different projects. The return on investment that we see for teams once we make an award is been in the range of around 30 to 32 times each dollar that we put in. And so in terms of that dollar that we put in, talking about this opportunity, this is called a proof of concept or gap funding grant. And so it is a non-dilutive intramural or university sourced funding. We provide grants between 10 and 50,000 to awarded teams. And those costs, we see allocated, or the use of funds is very commonly grad student research. There may be capital purchases or equipment. Sometimes there will be access to reports or information that can help build out a commercialization case. It could include travel to meet with potential partners or constituents or potential customers. And so really what we're looking for is a broad and impactful use case for the funds that are not going to be fundamental research. So we want you to use your, other grants to discover those technologies, and then really building a meaningful case for use of funds for how this is going to translate that to mission or to civilian cases. Well, I guess in this, it's both cases, really. So some key criteria for all applicants to this program, that there has to be a university PI whose lab the research is translating from. And so if you're curious about, well, what does a PI mean? Really, it could be a graduate student that initiates this and is an inventor on potential IP that is being managed by the university. The first thing you'd ask is, have I made or am I part of a disclosure to UC San Diego? So this is that you've invented something on our campus. That is the earliest that we would take into this program. So it can be as early as a disclosure, but that what we'd want to see as a part of this process is moving towards protected intellectual property, which Victoria and Anthony will speak about in a moment. And then the term of the program is 1 year. So we distribute funds for spend down for 12 months. All of your milestones, achievement, pathway to market, and mission would be within that 12 months. We assist, as Paul mentioned, with many other things related to spinning your technology out. That is connections with potential customers, strategic partners, early investors, legal and law firm support. And so outside of all of those tangible but soft kind of introductions, we also have courses like the one that Rachel mentioned, which is Innovating for National Security, that compare talent and support, as well as potentially space at our Horizon Accelerator, which is on the 4th floor at the Design and Innovation Building. And so that's kind of key criteria, the amount of spend, typical things that we like to see money spent on, terms, some of the benefits. I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry, the last thing is really looking at the timeline. So the application is currently open. I will, when I hand it over to my colleagues, I'll drop the application link in the landing page into the chat. The application is currently open. It will close on October 24th, during which we have a tight timeline internally to review commercial viability and the intellectual property strength behind what you've proposed. And so that's where it goes out, as Anthony and Victoria mentioned, to their teams for review and consideration with notes and feedback. We then have our innovation ecosystem partners review. And so that includes partners from the Institute for the Global Entrepreneur, if you've engaged with that group, potentially partners at the Altman Clinical Trials Research Institute, our partners at the Rady School of Management, and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. These all being directors and program managers running accelerators and programs designed to spin technologies out. So the questions are different for our licensing and commercialization group than they are from our I&E, or innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem partners. But the note for all of you is that all of those partners are internal to campus. Their staff and, I guess, people associated with the university. That does not change, though, your obligation, very strongly encouraged, do not include any confidential information in your applications. So even though this is an internal application and process, ensure that everything that you've put in is non-confidential. There are portions of our process that we do share with external partners and with potential investors, and we don't want to have to go through that and do NDAs or CDAs with each project kind of as necessary. So there are times for confidential information shared much later on, but that our process then concludes with an engagement where we invite industry and investors. This year, we're going to include command unit leadership in a session where you will be able to pitch your idea and what you want to do with the funds to those industry and external partners for a final recommendation from that group that aligns with both of the previous milestone reviews. The dates are already set for those reviews. They are split: 1 day physical sciences, that includes the technologies that Victoria's team typically reviews, and 1 day is life sciences. So for all of the people here, please, in the occasion that your team makes it through the first 2 stages, please set us aside or hold on your calendar for November 5th and November 6th. Those dates should be online as well, but you've heard it now from me. We'll make sure it's posted, and that teams, then you're working towards preparation of a 15-minute presentation with time for answers and questions and answers from those industry partners. That is a live event, So if you are not going to be in country for that, please let us know ahead of time so that we can plan accordingly. Physical presence doesn't determine eligibility, so we can make it work, although there is our strongest preference that people are in person or members of your team are able to act as proxy to do that. So I think with that, I'd like to throw it over to Victoria and Anthony. This is for you both to share and ensure that folks understand that process of disclosure to where it's appropriate for teams to look at to commercialize a technology. And then I think any questions that the group has, and then Rachel will throw it over to you.
So I see a few here, familiar names, who are seasoned inventors who have a few disclosures with us. But for those who aren't as familiar, we do have an online disclosure system. And we encourage you to disclose your idea if you haven't already, as early as you can if you intend to submit an application to this program, because we can help you, maybe figure out what you really have, right? And maybe help you also determine other aspects that are nascent in your idea, which could also be protected. So that's the first thing, right? Disclose soon. It's the main message. And when you disclose, you'll get assigned an innovation commercialization manager, and that way you get one-on-one attention on your case. Anthony, did you want to add to that?
No, I just wanted to say, I think I'm not sure for this program, but I think it's a requirement to have it disclosed to our office, to have an existing patent, or not necessarily patent, but the disclosure. Right, Shane?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah. So you need to.
In the past, we've had situations where they apply or Shane talks to them, but they haven't disclosed it. So, then they're sent to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's actually a requirement to disclose to us before the application, and the main thing is to as maybe I should maybe Shane, you should go to our website to show where we can actually disclose, or if you want me to do it, I can do it. I'm
Yeah.
sure many people have disclosed before, but just in case.
So yes, I'm pulling it up now. Anthony and Victoria, what is the typical timeline for if once someone makes a disclosure, is that all that they have to do, or do they have to have a meeting with one of you before it's, I guess, official?
No, the disclosure can be official before meeting with us, but sometimes it goes in the other direction. Sometimes we meet with them because they have questions about the whole process. But for AIM, we do make it a point to kind of give that support, right? Because we know we want to facilitate the application and make it as good as it can be.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's a little bit of a lag time right now with the processing of the disclosures. So when Victoria said disclose sooner than later, that's important because some of our staff are a little bit behind on the processing of the documents. So it may take a week before we actually know that some of us are assigned to a disclosure. So as Victoria mentioned, once you disclose, then it's assigned to an ICM, and then the ICM will contact you to set up time to discuss and also to go over the technology. And then if need be, we would file a patent then or later on as you will get more data.
Okay. Anthony, did you want me to highlight anything else besides this process view here?
No, just the link, I guess at the yeah. There is it on top? Yeah. You
Oh,
just click the button right there. Yeah. You just click there and it takes you to Sophia where you can actually start the disclosure process. And
okay.
if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact Victoria and I for any questions you may have.
Okay. And Sam has just added a question to the chat. Sam, would you like to ask that directly?
Sure. So I'm working with and have been for a couple of years, with a young man who was an engineering graduate and then a Rady graduate, and the product that they're developing is for the health. It's an infusion product, so it is for the health industry. Of course, there's a lot of engineering in it because it's both mechanical and electronic and software, etc. But they're not at the university anymore. The device was not invented in under any UC San Diego purview. Are they candidates to apply?
So are there students that are involved? Are they still students here?
No, but already graduated.
No one in the company has any function at UCSD.
I can't say for sure of all the staff, but none that I'm aware of.
Yeah, that's a Shane question.
Yeah,
I
so
think
it'd be an alumni, not an active, not a current.
yeah, so I think with regard specifically to like access to the funding in this program, it does require a disclosure or intellectual property managed by UCSD. But I think what you shared is that there's not any IP that's managed by UCSD for this opportunity in particular.
Correct. Yeah.
So this
Okay.
this program, AIM wouldn't be a perfect fit. However, there are a lot of other resources, myself included, along with the Horizon Accelerator, that we can offer to alumni. And so would be delighted, Sam, to connect for a further conversation and to see kind of what we can do to help them out.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll touch base with you then. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So Anthony, Victoria, that's a bit about disclosure. Timing is do it sooner than later. Um, and then in terms of costs, does it cost anything to make a disclosure?
Time.
No, uh,
Just time.
Time. Yeah. The fuller your disclosure, the more complete it is, the better. And because, as Shane said, maybe some of the stuff in your application might be shared with folks in the innovation ecosystem outside of university walls. If it, I would want to maybe file at least a provisional uh, before any of that happens,
Okay.
assuming we have enough information on invention.
Okay. And so an invention disclosure, you disclose everything. That can have confidential information. It should, because that is closed walls within the university. There's a conversation that would happen with the licensing team about the opportunity to potentially file a provisional patent. And does that have any costs?
The university normally owns the invention, so it's the university that pays for that.
Okay. Let's see. So those are some initial, I guess not initial, but rather concurrent steps that folks, if interested in pursuing this, would need to consider and take care of. With this info session, we've got a good amount of time still to get through those to-dos. Um, I'd say then, Rachel, I'd like to throw it over to you to chat about some of the, if there's key DoD interest areas or if people have questions about what might qualify in
Yeah,
technology interest area. I'd love to include your insight and
sure.
then open it up to general questions.
Yes. So you're wondering why now? Why is AIM, with its fantastic success they've had up to this point, why are they trying to focus on national security? It's because up to last year, UCSD was receiving about $1.7 billion in research money, and sizable amount, probably the largest in this area, was coming from Department of Defense. So why not take advantage of that, right? Also, we need to maintain the competitiveness of our nation, during this great competition between our adversaries. So that's one of the reasons why we're targeting specifically on defense tech and innovation to stay ahead of our adversaries, but also to discover emerging technologies that otherwise may not be brought to light. Um, the question that we often get, Shane and I and everybody else on the call probably, is what is dual use, right? So dual use is basically any technology, item, or software that has potential application in both civilian and military sectors, especially in commercial purposes. So a good example would be internet, right? It could be GPS, it could be artificial intelligence and drones, et cetera. So what you may not think of as dual use is actually is. So after the call, I would encourage you to really think about that. Obviously, you're on a call because you think your technology or invention is dual use, but encourage your colleagues to consider this fantastic opportunity to get some money. Um, One thing to realize is that you need to ask yourself, my invention, my technology that I'm pursuing, where would it fit? And rather than asking us, well, I want to work with DoD, you need to really go do the homework yourself. And you need to identify first which service would it pertain to. Is it Space Force? Is it the Navy? Is it the Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Special Operations Command? Or yes to all. But in case you need to pick a sector, you need to pick a service. And within that service, you need to figure out which enterprise within that service will best my technology or invention apply to. An example is, let's see, let's say Sonia has an invention or technology she's pursuing, and she chooses Navy. But if you say Navy, that's a lot of enterprises. So she may want to go into Google Navy and then say, what is the focus area for my invention? But rather than doing that, ask yourself, is it naval aviation that might have an application to what I'm doing? Would it be submarine community? Could it be surface warfare or again, special warfare command? So the more homework you do in that regard of finding out who the beneficiary could be, better off do you have an opportunity or likelihood that you be funded. And it's all public knowledge. It's not something that Shane and I could just say, this is it. You need to kind of really do the discovery yourself. But that's what I would ask you guys do. And each of those service enterprise area on a Google, if you type in, for example, focus area for 2025, U.S. Navy slash naval aviation, they are required by law to publish their focus area annually. So you have that right there for yourself to kind of do research. So the more you know about for whom your invention, your technology is solving a problem for, that makes your likelihood of receiving a grant stronger. And also that will allow us to bring in the right stakeholder from the user side, i.e. Department of Defense, to make sure you're getting the right feedback. So sorry to be long-winded, Shane, but
No worries at all. Um, so I want to address some questions that have come up in the chat and then encourage kind of back and forth feedback or other questions that may come up between this group to address. So there's a question Niall, is that how you say your name? Or
Yes, that's right.
all right. Hi, would you like to ask your question?
Oh, sure. I'm working with a group of my students. I'm faculty, and we're in the process of building a prototype, which would fall under life sciences innovation. And we hope to have a simple, viable prototype by the end of the fall quarter. Is it too early to file a disclosure?
No, I think regardless of the timing, I think for this program you should file as soon as possible. But for actually filing for the patent, we might over our discussion once you talk it with the ICM. You might want to wait for having the prototype before functioning prototype before we actually file for the patent. But for this program, you should file the disclosure as soon as possible before you apply to the program. So the answer is no, it's not too early, but for patenting, it might be too early, but we will discuss that with you.
It depends, right? Depends what it is. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
if it's a prototype drug, maybe it is too early. If it's a prototype device, and you have drawings and stuff and you can simulate or whatever its performance, maybe it's not too early
Right.
Thank you.
to patent. I mean, to file provisional might be enough, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of this program, those are great technology stage for us because it may be some costs uh, to help build out the prototype or to test it. You know, those are things that the funding from this program can help to offset and to achieve. Another question, Raja
Yeah,
asked.
that's right.
Yes, okay. A two for two in names here today. I think your question was about applications being evaluated together after the 24th deadline or first come, first served. So for us, I have in the past forwarded on complete applications to our ICMs to begin that review process. We enjoy that because it's less applications to review in a short amount of time. However, we typically see, I'd say like 98% of applications get submitted at the submission deadline, not really ever before. It doesn't change consideration by way of the program design, so there's no preference given for earlier submissions. However, less time may result in less feedback if your program is being reviewed against five others over a couple of day period. So I think it is advantageous to submit earlier. Um, and then I made a comment about, if you make a submission early or if you have a draft, I would
Yeah.
strongly encourage communication and conversation with your ICM about, pathway to commercialization, strength of the application and the submission. Rachel, I'm not sure how what your schedule looks like between now and October 24th.
Mhm.
But if you're available, I'd imagine some of these folks would enjoy a conversation maybe about their
Sure.
project.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So, Raja, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. And one other follow-up question I had was, I noticed that number 5 is we also have a conflict. We have like an NSF SBIR phase 1 submission deadline, and that also usually runs. We submitted close to the deadline. So I was wondering, for the proposal review panel, do you require like the entire team to be present? Or I noticed that the dates for the review was like November 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm. So we do not require your full team to be present. So
Okay.
if you have one representative, potentially two, that can speak to the commercialization pathway and the plan uh,
Okay.
to commercialize, then that is plenty and sufficient for us.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Victoria, Reza, Rachel, or myself? Gosh. All right. Um, you know, I I will imagine some questions for myself, and I'll ask this group. Are there, given the dual use scope of this program this year, are there concerns about export control that we wouldn't have had previously, or is that always the same?
No,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead, Victoria.
um, I was going to say DOE has some special things, but we're not doing any. I mean, this is not DOE funding, so we wouldn't be subject to that. But
Yeah,
if what you're proposing has had some DOE support in the past, then maybe it would be subject to stricter rules.
Okay.
yeah, and I was going to say this would only come in if at the time of licensing. So if the technology advances and there's a startup or there's a licensee that wants to corporation that wants to come and license the technology, the export control question will come at that point, not really during the application time. But if you also have funding from DoD or you are going to get funding from DoD, it's really good to disclose it to us during the disclosure time, the disclosure application.
But maybe Shane, your question is more directed towards the vision for the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, right? So everyone is subject to US laws on export control, ITAR, et cetera, of course, right? Especially if it's something under national security umbrella. So there's that. So there may arise certain questions, especially if it has to do with AI and things that are classified under emerging technologies. It becomes a little more complicated.
Okay, Shane, this is Raj. Can I ask a question that is along the lines of what you were asking? So, first question, a two-part question is: first is I'm neither a graduate student or a student currently at UCSD, but we're working very closely with researchers and certain grad students in affiliation with UCSD, specifically like Stanford Genetics Institute, College of Bioengineering, specifically in the area of AI and drug repurposing. And we're using also organoids. So my question is, do we qualify in this if we work with a researcher slash grad student and we'll use part of the funds to further fund a lab inside of UCSD? Does that qualify for this particular program?
Yeah, if I think if the disclosure comes from the UCSD lab or faculty or student or whatever you're working with, and at the time of disclosure, if they say the invention is partly or wholly or owned by UCSD and another entity, which is your company, then that's fine. But if the technology is purely owned by your company and you're just doing kind of a service agreement back to the university, but there are no inventions that are coming out of the university, then no.
Okay, no, that's Thank you very much, Anthony. That's we were talking to a stem cell foundation today as well, and this is our purpose is to promote the work we're doing with UCSD. I mean, it's the beauty of a public-private partnership is what technologies like what we're developing. I think many of us are here is very very important to promote the work we're doing with UCSD. That's the importance of this. My second part of the question is we are part of a roadshow to China starting in 2 weeks, and there are possibilities might come up whereby there's three things that might happen. One is we may have government or investment interest from within China. Second, there might be interest from pharmaceutical or other type of healthcare related med tech companies or things that we may be working on. And third is there may be tests, diagnostics, wearables, other technology we may want to license from China. Would that play a negative perception role if we were to get involved in this program?
It's not a negative, but it definitely will have implication if you were to move forward with the defense agency for next steps.
So defense plays, I mean, is defense a very big part of this program? And if so, is that going to just completely risk us? Uh, is it going to be a risk for us to even get awarded if we qualify and we get to a certain step in this program?
I think it's important to pursue every commercial opportunities you have available to you and not let anything get ahead of that,
Okay.
right? Because both
Okay.
in defense and commercial, it's all about traction.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
having
okay.
said that, if you were to have a commercial success with Chinese partners and decide to go into defense, there may be some implications along with that.
Okay. We'll continue forward and
I'll
thank you
let
so
I'll
much
let I'll
for.
let Seamus comment on that too. So
No, I agree. So Raj, was that helpful?
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Okay. Another question here. So if the PI is a US citizen, but grad students or postdocs in the team are international students on visa, should only the PI be part of the application and panel presentation? That is a good question. It has not been something that we ever prohibited or limited access to because ultimately this is research being funded by multiple entities, but being done at a public university. And so whatever research rules there are for the work in your lab are the same ones that we abide by. I think once it comes to potential mission deployment or some adoption by one of the command units or some branch of the military, there may be further restrictions where their rules apply. But in terms of this program, no restriction or limitation on citizenship status as it relates to people affiliated with a project.
And also for the disclosure, when the PI or student or the postdoc are making the disclosure to the office, they have to disclose uh, any and all inventors that were involved in coming up with this new invention. And I can talk to you separately what that means, who's an inventor and who's not. But it's on our website as well if you want to look at it. But if they are involved in the invention, then if they, it's up to the PI if they want to be in the process of application or not and presentation or not. So, but there's no restriction for application.
And Rosa, just based on your question, there is another program called the Global Entrepreneur in Residence. It's a grant funded by the state of California and the GoBiz office, and it is an amount of funding that is allocated towards supporting with visa. So like
Yeah.
O1, I think O1 Einstein, I can't remember the other one. O1 is the one I do remember.
EB1.
EB1. Okay, thank you. And so there's a set of visas that this funding can cover the fees for applying and processing, and then funding also set aside to help offset and provide the, I guess, salary or the requirements of the visa for paid work.
Yeah.
The program was opened earlier this spring and closed. However, there's some remaining funding that we're kind of sorting out. I wish Paul was here because he could say how likely it is and what the timeline was. But I
Yeah.
would say just bookmark that page and get in touch with us for news or keep in touch with us on LinkedIn or other kind of social stuff.
Okay.
Because that program may reopen with remnant funding to enable
Okay.
yourself or peers in the lab to take advantage of that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is specifically for student postdocs that were here on visa and their visa is expiring or their program, postdoc or student PhD is finishing and they are doing a startup or doing a new technology and they want to remain in the country to run the startup.
Yeah.
And that program would help them apply for the visa and so on and so forth.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. So I think maybe Tulsi, I'm gonna give it a shout out to because she's one of our colleagues also at the Innovation and Commercialization, and is putting together a space technology day later on this fall. So if anybody's working on technologies related to aerospace or for implementation in low Earth orbit or in space or on other planets, our office is working on bringing together and developing community around that technology set as well. So we are an almost like an unending treasure box of resources and insight and things that can share things that we can share with you to help commercialize those technologies. So Tulsi has said she's happy to follow up with anyone around space innovation and technologies. I don't know if you want to throw your perfect. You read my mind. So there's her email address. Please reach out to her if you have questions or would like to get engaged otherwise.
Yeah,
So
so one thing about that, so
yeah,
space does come under national security in some regards. So all the question you may have about the implication of further pot of money. So if you could just kind of assume the same rules apply.
okay. Well then, I am delighted with the turnout, engagement, great questions from everybody. We've got about 10 minutes before the end of the hour, and I would love to capture that 10 minutes back for myself and for everybody. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to your applications. Again, reach out if you've got any questions or need any support. But take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.